Pete Golding and the Ole Miss Rebels are off to a very hot start in the portal. After an incredible run in the playoff, they deserve credit. Let's talk about it right here on a crossover Locked on Ole Miss and the portal.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into a crossover edition of Locked on the Portal with Locked on Ole Miss. I am Brian Smith with Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for making each of our podcasts a part of your day, each and every day, right here in the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We are brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. College football playoff is down to the final game, and it's been awesome all year long. And FanDuel is going to let you get in on the action one more time. Just check it out at FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost on game day. We're going to be talking about something that many fans probably aren't, but even though I'm not an Ole Miss fan, the 2026 Ole Miss team is intriguing, maybe the most intriguing in all of college football. We're going to explain why later on in the show. Does Ole Miss have any portal concerns? They're off to a hot start, but is there anything they need to add? I'm going to pick Steven's brain about that. We're going to talk about the players they've gotten so far. It's very SEC heavy and very talented. And to start off, I want to talk about Pete Golding and Trinidad Chambliss, just straight up, before I even get Steven in here. I know he's supportive, but it is amazing what Pete Golding did with the staff and the whole going back and forth to LSU and all that with Coach Weiss Jr., all that. They were one play away from going to the college football final. They got a quarterback that came in from D2. Obviously, that's part of it was the Kiffin thing. That's great, but it continued even after he left. To hold that together, for them to be as seamless as they were is incredible. And then at the same time, while they're in the playoff, to put together this portal class. If Ole Miss fans aren't excited, what are y'all doing? So hats off to Pete Golding. And that brings me to the Trinidad Chambliss scenario. And if you want to comment, Stephen, fire away about Pete, but I'm sure you've spoken about him plenty with your Ole Miss listeners. Fire away. You want Trinidad first, or you want to go with Pete?
Let's start off with Pete, just because the Trinidad Deuce thing, there's just kind of a natural transition there. We'll start with Pete. And the work that Pete Golding did as the head coach in December, after he got named the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels, was pretty remarkable, because there was about a month where he didn't put a step wrong. Press conference, whatever he needed to do, making sure that Charlie Weiss Jr. was going to be at Ole Miss for the duration of the playoffs, and all of that going on. Pete Golding did a fantastic job. And then the question became, well, what kind of a game day coach would he be? And then they go out against Tulane, and they do exactly against Tulane what they did before. And then you got Georgia. It's like, whoa. Georgia beat Lane Kiffin. This might be a bridge too far. And Pete Golding went out there and made Kirby Smart flinch. Kirby Smart was the guy that made the first-time coaching mistakes in that game. And Ole Miss was able to get the win, partly because they have a freaking superhuman as a kicker. But you get to Miami, it was a little bit of a bridge too far for Ole Miss, because they had their run stuffer linebacker got hurt on the second play. The game script and everything, the Ole Miss offense didn't look quite right at the beginning of the game like they normally do. And still, they were 19 seconds away from winning that game. And every Ole Miss fan should be excited about what they saw, because if you watch that game from beginning to end, Ole Miss should not have been in the lead with 19 seconds to go. They got physically outmatched in that game, but Pete Golding and those guys found a way to fight, found a way to use their guts, and figured out a way to almost win that game and get to Miami. And that should have Ole Miss fans ecstatic.
I absolutely agree. Now, with the roster they have coming back and with the roster they're building, obviously the portal is not done as we do this podcast on, I believe it's January 13th, and we're getting ready to look at it from a perspective of there's a little more to go. But like right now, if you quit with the portal class, Ole Miss would be in a pretty good spot. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Trinidad Chambliss scenario, we'll talk about that here in just a moment, is the icing on the cake. But even if they don't, they got Deuce Knight already. This has been a whirlwind that very few football programs in the history of the sport have seen in say, month and a half span since the beginning of December. Let's just go with that. It's insane. So again, hats off to the Rebels. And to that, what are you hearing and what do you think about Trinidad Chambliss in that whole scenario with the NCAA, the waiver, the no waiver? What's the latest from your end?
Okay, it all started, for people that are paying attention to this for the first time, don't know anything about it, a couple of weeks back, or about a week, the night after the Miami game, actually. It dropped down that the NCAA had denied his waiver. What is going on right now is Ole Miss is appealing that waiver through the NCAA. And that means that whatever committee is going on at the AFCA convention right now, they will make some kind of a ruling one way or another. You're starting to see people on Twitter that are winning their appeals or losing their appeals, something like that. So this is Tom Mars and William Liston's, their chance to give the NCAA a chance to save face. Because the reality of what's going on is there seems to be a new gotcha moment that Tom Mars uncovers every single day. So if this thing goes to trial, Ole Miss is going to win. Trinidad is going to win. But they're giving the NCAA the opportunity to do the right thing here, to say, okay, we're not going to pick this fight. We'll find somebody else to pick a fight with that we can win. And whenever they accept or deny will lead to the next step. If they deny it, obviously that's Tom Mars and William Liston applying for a lawsuit for an injunction or a temporary restraining order or whatever you want to call it for Trinidad Chambliss, and they're going to lawsuit through it. It's probably going to take a couple of years for that lawsuit to finish. The injunction's the important part there. If he gets that, he will play this fall. So if you were to ask me, the starting quarterback on day one for Ole Miss this fall is Trinidad Chambliss. I think he has an excellent case to do that. And that makes sense because, to me, he is instantly, if he gets the injunction, the favorite for the Heisman Trophy moving forward. He's the best quarterback potentially in all of college football, and he's certainly the most marketable. If you saw his AT&T commercial, he just oozes charisma and all of that. And with Ole Miss, what they have around him and what they're bringing in through the transfer portal, this is a top 5 level football team for Ole Miss if Trinidad Chambliss comes back. So to say the next couple of weeks are consequential for Ole Miss would be an understatement.
It is really fascinating, and it's unfortunate that we got to go through lawyers to get this done, but this is kind of a weird deal where he had sickness, etc. So there really is no other path. I get it. My only thing is I hope whatever the ruling is, it's done fast. I don't want this thing dragging out to March 5th because courts can be horrific. Ole Miss needs to know what they're planning for Deuce and for everybody else, and every other player on the team needs to know. Players that recruit, unfortunately, it's not going to be quick enough, I'm sure, for the portal, but a few of the guys that are going to make decisions like, who's my QB going to be? Like, this is really important from a timing standpoint, but I digress. And before we turn the page completely on quarterback, Deuce coming over, you and I thought this was a possibility a couple of years ago. You never know with kids flipping, but he's going to be at Ole Miss. I think it would be good for him personally. I know Deuce pretty well. If he could sit another year, I know he doesn't want to. No kid wants to sit. I get it. And watch. Trinidad does things not just, he's a great athlete, this and that. He's as good from the pocket, if not better, than he is outside the pocket. He's not your traditional running QB because he throws lasers when he needs to. He'll throw a level 2 ball just over the corner in front of the safety or just over the back or in front of the safety. All those things from eye level, I think would benefit Deuce. What's your take on Mr. Knight?
Yeah, I think the ideal situation would be Trinidad Chambliss getting his waiver and being a mentor, teaching Deuce Knight how to play the quarterback position, because Trinidad does a lot of great things with access throws, just the quick access throws out there that can really put the cornerbacks in conflict. And you don't think about cornerbacks as conflict players, but his quick release and getting the ball out in a hurry makes the cornerbacks have to decide, are they going to play up close and get beat over the top, or are they going to allow that throw and have to make a tackle? They become an actual conflict player. Now, Deuce Knight, if he can pick up the way that Trinidad plays the position, the stuff that he does in between one snap and snapping the ball again, all of the stuff of diagnosing what is going on, I think that would be nothing but a good thing, because as we have said for years, Deuce Knight would be an unbelievable fit at Ole Miss. And we thought that Deuce Knight was going to end up at Ole Miss, even when he was committed to Notre Dame back in the day. So I'm excited to see what could happen. Deuce Knight had 400 yards of offense in his only start last year, had 167 yards rushing, accounted for 6 touchdowns. The talent oozes off of Deuce Knight. He just needs to learn how to play the position. And once that happens, he goes from really good quarterback to elite quarterback almost overnight.
I agree. And speaking of good talent coming to Ole Miss, I'm really impressed. I just went over their list. I got plenty of stats, got a lot of things to discuss. That is next on this crossover Locked on Ole Miss and the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The college football playoff is down to the Miami Hurricanes playing the Indiana Hoosiers, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game. Because right now, with the finals, the college football playoff game day is going to be awesome with a profit boost waiting for you in the app. You could do it if you wanted to do that with NFL as well. Here's what you should like about it. It doesn't matter if you want to go with Indiana, who's the favorite. If you want to go with Miami, who's the underdog, go with quarters. If you want to talk about player props or anything else, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is apply the profit boost after you win for bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. Visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff boost every single game day. If you want to keep the party rolling, make sure you check out the Everydayer Club for Locked on Ole Miss and Locked on the Portal. Down in the description below, there is a link. And in that link, you can get information about the Discord. And if you want to take your podcast on the go, Podbean, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get them, ad-free, $5 a month or $50 for a year. Check it out down in the description below, the Everydayer Club. All right, Stephen, I got more stats here than I could possibly list off in a half-hour show, but I am really impressed with, once again, what Pete has done. Pete Golding's staff, like Jonel Aguero, Cameron Miller, Troy Everett, Sharif Denson, Makai Boyro. By the way, I'm going to come back to him in a second. He's really important. Carius Kern, very important.
Jay
Crawford from Auburn. Yeah. I mean, it's like they got several starters here. So 2 questions. Number one, did you know they had this much money to spend? Because this seems like it's a little, there's been a boost somewhere. Somebody dropped some cash. This is not a normal list for Ole Miss. And number 2, who's your favorite guy?
Well, yes, there is extra cash than you would expect. You want to see what happened in November and December galvanizing a booster base? This is what it looks like. So honestly, yeah, that is what that is. I really like Jay Crawford. To me, he is the Trey Amos of this defense, and Trey Amos in 2024 was key to the Ole Miss defense and what they were able to do, because Trey Amos could man you up. And when you can play man on the back end, you can take away the run game up front and everything is going to work. We always talk about how the defensive line and the way that the Alabamas and the Georgias back in the day used to be really successful. Well, you can't really do that if you have to play zone defense, because it's a little bit easier to run against zone defense teams. It's just the way it works. If you can bump and run man and do all of that, Antonio Kite on one side, Jay Crawford on the other, you got Denson in there as well. They can play man coverage, and they brought in safeties, because over the course of this season, the Achilles heel for this Ole Miss defense was the lack of ability to play man coverage. So that forced a lot of drop 8 situations, and teams like Arkansas and teams like Georgia and Miami in the national semifinals were able to take advantage of that in the physicality. I do think in the front 7, Ole Miss is exactly where they want to be. By the end of the year, William Eccles was completing his transformation to a Walter Nolan style player. He is going to be really good. Cam Franklin is going to be really good. But the fact that they had to protect that secondary put the defensive line at a disadvantage. I think in this next season, you're going to see them really take off. And Jaheim Otis, his price tag was a little bit too much last year. All of a sudden this year, apparently it was just right. He's going to be there. The transfer from Florida, what's his name again?
Makai Boyro. He's a
yes.
6'4", 350-pound zero tech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they obviously are looking, it's like, hey, we are that close to having an absolutely dominant defense. We just need to have retention on the offensive side of the ball. If we can make that happen, we are going to have a really good football team.
Speaking of Boyro, let's talk about him. He's a kid, for those that don't know, when I say zero tech, like he just straight up on the center in a 3-man line, NFL style, New England Patriots 10 years ago, whatever. He's that guy. Georgia.
Now, Cody.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's massive. There just aren't many human beings like that. And Georgia was really ticked they didn't get him out of high school. So when he went in the portal, I'm like, uh-oh, here it comes. Kirby's going to get this kid. And then I saw he committed to Ole Miss. I'm like, okay, now they're spending money. Because that was not a cheap addition. There was no way. Because there's only 2 or 3 of those guys in the portal cycle. That's it. So I'm guessing he got a couple $1 million or whatever to go there because I'm sure Georgia offered him some cash, etc. And he played 296 snaps last year for the Gators on defense. So he's an experienced kid. He's got a couple years of eligibility. Carius Kern, 4 starts at left tackle last year for LSU. Started at right tackle against Ole Miss for him as well. So he's got starts. He was a freshman. He was a 4 or 5 star, depending on who you want to talk to out of high school. Plug and play. I mean, is it hard to? I have a hard time believing he ain't starting for Ole Miss in some capacity. I don't know which spot. I don't know how many guys they got coming back. Like, how many returning O linemen they got, Stephen?
They are returning the guard, center guard, and the 2 tackles graduated.
So I don't know if it's right or left, but Kern's going to be one of those 2.
It depends on whether or not he is safe enough to where you put him on Trinidad's blind side. Yeah. Or if you put him where you can see him. That's the answer, what it's going to come down to.
Absolutely. Cameron Miller, this is an interesting guy you and I talked about briefly before the show. Played as a freshman at Kentucky, started a few games, 13 catches, 141 yards, 176 snaps. Freshmen just don't start in the SEC very much, so that's an interesting pickup. Jonel Aguero, he played all over the place for Kirby. Listen to this variety. He lined up on the edge as like a blitzer 62 times. So PFF had him as a defensive lineman. Just for the record, he's never going to be a real defensive lineman because he's 5'11", 205, but he blitzes a lot. In the box as a strong safety 83 times. Nickel, 375 snaps. Corner, 17 snaps. And free safety, 26 snaps. To say they picked up a really good safety that's just absolutely no doubt about it going to start, that would be him. And then the guy that I think is maybe the most important, other than Boyro's the hardest to find, Jay Crawford, we talked about. This is a 1-year player, then he will turn pro. Stephen could not have been more accurate. When you can put somebody like him on the opposing team's best player, he may not dominate him, but he's going to at least make you think about throwing that direction. Elite receivers are going to get theirs by and large, but they haven't had a guy like this. Amos is really good. I think this kid's better. Just my opinion. And I think he is flat out somebody that is going to be a longtime NFL player. It just so happens that when he broke that he was leaving Auburn, I was in the middle of doing a crossover with one Zach Blackerby, literally in the middle of the show. And he stopped the show. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "It happened." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Jay Crawford just entered the portal," and he stopped our show. We did a different show. That's how bad he was mad. That's the maddest I've ever seen Zach, because that was his favorite player on Auburn's team. So this is an NFL player. You're changing your defense. You want to add anything? You want to talk about any of those guys? Fire away. But the only guy left, I'll talk about Edwin Joseph after the break, and then we'll get into a few possible concerns, although they're very minimal, and then 26 season. What do you got, Stephen?
Yeah, one thing that I'm really interested in, the Cameron Miller thing, because he is a true freshman. There's not much film on him for what's going on. Now, he did wear number 22, which for Ole Miss fans, that's obviously something you want to keep an eye on. But the notes that I've got on him is that he is basically a film rat. He's a gym rat. He catches everything that is thrown to him, which means that if Caden Lee comes back, he is probably earmarked to be one of those slot type wide receivers. He's certainly built that way.
There you go. There you go. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the portal concerns, if there are any. By the way, Ole Miss is still ahead of the curve with the zero tech and getting a potential left tackle and getting a dominant corner. Do they have any? And after that, we're going to discuss the 26th season. The schedule is very, very unique. That is next here on this crossover. All right, Stephen, if you could pick one position that the Rebels needed to hit once they're done with their portal cycle, what is that player or position before it's over? What do they have to get to really fix this? Because otherwise they might have a concern at.
Yeah, I'm thinking offensive tackle still. They have Kern. That is good, but you need two. You have two. And you just look at that white well that is sitting in the transfer portal right now of Jordan Seaton.
I don't even want to know what his title is or his NIL number is.
Oh my goodness. Whenever that name came out, I was like, he is going to make $5 million in this cycle.
There's not been anybody like him since this opened that was that established, hit the portal. Not one.
Yeah. Yeah. And he plays one of the main positions that gets the money. So whenever they're trying to do that, it's a truly value position. But we'll see if whoever comes up, if Kern becomes that guy that you trust on the blind side of Trinidad, maybe you can go get a G5 guy to play the tackle on the other side that's very good or something like that, because you still have Connor Hawes. You still have players that have been brought up in the system. So if you're looking at recruiting over the top, that's probably the position. I think Ole Miss would look for another linebacker. If you can grab another backer, that would be what you'd want. They obviously don't need a running back. We'll talk about JT Lindsay in just a second. And maybe a wide receiver. The rumor is he was predicted by Chris Hummer, the Darrell Gill Jr. from Syracuse, who's another similar to Deshaun Stribling thing. And I don't mean physically. He played in an offense without a quarterback. So he did not have big numbers. They couldn't get him the ball. And he's somebody that I expect once somebody could get him the ball, completely goes off.
For those that don't know, Gill played at Syracuse last year, and they started great. And Angeli was tremendous to transfer from Notre Dame. Then he blew his Achilles. It got so bad, they literally started a lacrosse player at quarterback. Stephen, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. That is quite atrocious. So I think they're in a very good spot. JT Lindsay, that'll be a good running back. They've got the big fella back. Like the offense, if they find, again, this is a big if they find the other tackle or maybe somebody on the roster surprises, why couldn't this be a top 10 offense next year? There's really no reason to think that it wouldn't be, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you look at the running back room that they have coming back as of right now, you have Kewan Lacey, who's a 1,600-yard rusher from a year ago, 25 touchdowns, something ridiculous, backed up by Shakai Mills-Knight, backed up by JT Lindsay, backed up by Demarius Yates. Demarius Yates
is going to be fourth string. Yeah,
he's going to be fourth string. And that's the situation that the big boys, whenever you look at the rosters and all that, that's kind of what you want. You want AK Deer to be the fourth string running back, or something like that. So it excites me to see, because Yates is an explosive dude. And it'll be really interesting to see how that hierarchy kind of gets dealt with over the course of spring and fall.
I think that offense is going to be fun, and they'll finally have the depth. If they just want to be a power team, especially with Halls and some of those guys back, they could probably lead the SEC in rushing next year if they wanted. Obviously, if Trinidad gets his waiver, probably won't happen because they can throw it. But if they wanted, they could probably lead the league in rushing. So that's a good position to be in.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If Trinidad comes back, they'll average 40 points a game and they'll give up 15 points a game. And that's probably a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, I would. If he comes back, I would probably have them top of my head, top 6 preseason would be my guess. They'll be a playoff team. It'd be surprising if they weren't. Let's talk a little bit about the schedule. For those that don't know it that well, They've got Georgia at home, LSU at home. They got to go to the Sooners, correct? Is that right?
To Oklahoma, to Texas, too.
That's tough, man. Give me your thoughts on the schedule.
I think it's going to be fun. This is the first year of the 9-game SEC schedule, so they're going to be difficult games. There also is a game to the Swamp, which can always be a tricky place to play as well. Ole Miss has a very difficult schedule, more so than this year. This year they kind of had an easy schedule that they were able to just kind of dominate. Next year will be a little bit more tricky whenever you have Texas obviously trying to buy a championship. That's what they're doing right now. Whenever you have Oklahoma, they're going to be a very good team in year 2 with John Mateer. And then you have the LSU game, which is going to be absolute cinema in Oxford. And then you have the Georgia game, Kirby Smart coming in what has turned out to be a pretty good game over the last couple of years.
It has.
I'm excited to see what happens there. All I know is Vaught Hemingway, Ole Miss's stadium, is going to be absolutely rocking a couple of times next year, and I'm looking forward to it.
Who does Ole Miss open up with as far as their first P4 game? Who's their first one?
Louisville. In Nashville. Louisville and Nashville.
I mean, I don't know how that'll go. I trust Brom as a coach. He's a heck of a play caller. I just don't know what their defensive talent will be. They got Isaac Brown back, the running back, but I mean, that's not a cupcake by any stretch. So
it's one of those things that you need Trinidad back, because you would feel nervous about Deuce Knight starting that being his first start.
Yeah, I would not want to go against Brom with an unproven quarterback. I would not. But we'll see if they can get that done. Is there anything on the 2026 schedule timing-wise? Because SEC is smart. They market well. They put out the games. Is there any back-to-back that makes you nervous, like a trap game or anything in the schedule? There's always seemingly one.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet as far as looking at it, because we're still in the transfer portal window, so we're not exactly 100% sure who is going to be good. Look at what Kentucky's doing right now.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Whenever this all settles out, we can start looking at the schedule and breaking it down, but we're not quite there yet. Maybe in February we can start to have those conversations.
I think a shout out to Stein and his staff. They've done a really good job. I can't remember the last time I said Kentucky's going to have a good offense. Not sure I've ever said that, actually, Stephen. I mean, it's just they might be a team that can beat you in the fourth quarter with their quarterback. They might be able to beat you with their receiver, et cetera. Like, that is just not the norm in Lexington. So that kind of shows you the SEC's kind of topsy-turvy, especially after the last 2 years with Vanderbilt. But I think they're going to fall back to the pack. There's no way they're replacing Diego Pavia in a easy fashion. That's the hardest player to fix going away of anybody in college football. So.
Yeah, and it's going to be a true freshman quarterback too, because there's no way Jared Curtis is not taking the first snap.
Yeah, and he won't be ready. He played 1A private school ball in Tennessee. That's going to be interesting.
Fun fact, whenever I worked at WSMV in Nashville, Tennessee, we'd have to go out and shoot high school games. My game every week was Nashville Christian. So I could drive that in my sleep. I know exactly what was going on there. Yeah, so I'm well aware with the competition level of Nashville Christian.
Yeah, I saw a film of Jared a few times, and it just looked like he was out there with people that weren't on the same planet. There are a lot of 5'8" guys out there. So he's got all the talent in the world, but good luck to him at Vanderbilt. Final thoughts for me. Ole Miss will be the most unique team in college football next season because of all the stuff that's going on now. We think Trinidad will be back, and if he is, that makes him, again, I got him preseason top 6. Stephen, any last thoughts?
It's one of those things. It comes down. I think if Deuce Knight's the quarterback, the ceiling is 15 to 17 in the top 20. If Trinidad comes back, they can win the Natty. And I don't think Ole Miss fans should back away from that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Appreciate you, sir. Where can everybody find your work?
Check me out on YouTube at Locked On Ole Miss. Check me out on the socials. You can see the account down below. We try to make following Ole Miss football fun, and that's what we're going to try to do. And however insufferable we become, it'll be fun whenever you come over and see it. So check us out.
Appreciate it. You can find the Portal Podcast on Spotify, Apple, Podbean, and of course on YouTube. This has been a crossover. We will talk to you again soon.